Welcome to Practicing Life podcast. I'm Ashley Pitzer, your ascension coach and hypnotist. And today we are talking about when words hurt. So we remember this rhyme that was told to us in our childhood that sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. But the thing about it is words do hurt. And there's a reason that words hurt because it's about what you're making those words mean, whether you believe those words, whether you're allowing those words to affect you. So, in the life coaching industry, there's some criticism around life coaches' advice to don't take it personal. So, I want to talk about this because this is actually really good advice, but this is quite different from when somebody comes up to you and they say something, whether that's a spouse or a coworker or a friend, and they say, "Hey, don't take this personal, but," and then they say something very personal. All right, that's quite different than the advice of you're working with a coach and you're suffering because of something that someone has said to you, whether directly or indirectly, and a coach gives you the advice of don't take it personal. So let's distinguish these two things really quickly. When someone comes up to you and they say don't take it personal, and then they offload information towards you, well, often when someone is saying that, they're saying that because they don't want you to be hurt by what they are saying and they don't want their relationship to be damaged, but they want to be able to speak their mind to you. Okay. And then the flip side of that is you, the person on the receiving end, when you hear don't take it personal, it's almost like a part of your brain goes into fight, flight, or freeze. You're now put on high alert that this may hurt. Like you've been warned that it could hurt. Now your brain is expecting it to hurt. So you now have the lens, the lens of I am possibly going to be hurt here. So you're going to be filtering whatever they say through this lens. Okay, so I understand there's a lot of criticism around the words, don't take it personal. But what I am talking to you today about is when you have taken something personal and it's hurting you, you're emotionally suffering over it. And the advice is given to you is don't take it personal. How do you do that? Why do people say it? That's what this episode is on. So, life coaches in general, this is one of the mindful practices that we would encourage our clients to take. And why do we do that? Well, because when you're setting an emotional turmoil, it isn't doing you any good. It's not helping your vibrations. It's not helping you live a vibrant life. And quite personally, you're coming to us saying that you don't want this experience. So when a life coach will say to you along the lines, don't take it personal, what they're saying for you to do is let go of the emotional suffering so that you can have freedom from that and step back into your power. Now, a lot of people want this. They truly want this. This is why they're coming to life coaches or they're going to maybe a counselor or something along that lines. They want the help because some words are affecting them. And they want to get space and distance from that. They want these words not to hurt them. So we're going to talk about it from don't take things personal, meaning detach from the emotions coming up. Another way of saying this is to not allow people's comments, actions, attitudes, opinions, yada, 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 to affect how you personally feel, whether that's about yourself, whether that's about the direction you're going in, whatever it may be. We live in a world now with social media where people can say things indirectly to you and you have no idea if it even applies to you. And you can be hurt about something that has nothing to do with you. but you suspect it does. And so we live in a world where there's perceived threats to, your character all the time. So when someone like me, a coach, comes to you and says, well, take a different perspective, like don't take it personal, look at this as objectively as possible. They're teaching you a mindful practice. One of the quotes that I really love, and I'm going to read to you, is by David Cameron Gikandi. I think that's how you say his last name. It's Gikandi. His quote is this: "The meaning of everything is the meaning you give it. And your experiences are what you say they are. No experience exists outside of the person experiencing it. The meaning of everything is what you give it." This is something that I coach on a lot. I coach myself on a lot because only you only you are able to decide the meaning of something. So whether someone directly comes up and says something to you or it happens indirectly, whether that's through social media or through a friend or gossip, whatever it may be, only you can apply the meaning of it. And you get to make that decision. Now, that can be sometimes a little standoffish, as in, like, what do you mean everybody would come up with this same meaning that I'm giving it? Maybe so, maybe not. But the problem is you're the one choosing it, and you can choose umpteen different ways of viewing it. And so the lesson of do not take it personal is saying that, hey, you're choosing to make this personal. You're choosing to apply these meanings to this word. Someone else isn't asking you to put this meaning on it. You're choosing this. And even if someone was asking you to put this meaning on it, you have the right to reject and claim something else for yourself. So, this is the reason I love this quote. Everything is the meaning you give it. In life coaching, a lot of life coaches are about empowering you. I am about empowering you. And empowerment is getting the freedom from emotional suffering, to detach from the emotional attachment so that you can have peace of mind, so that you can live your vibrant life, so you can have a better quality of life. And so part of that is taking responsibility that you're choosing to apply certain meanings to something. And I do it myself too. So this is not a judgment. This isn't calling anybody out. I coach myself on this all the time. I ask myself all the time, what meaning am I giving this, or what interpretation am I putting on this? And then I can really kind of step away from this, whatever circumstance I'm looking at, and look at it from a different perspective. And this helps me to be very peaceful. A lot of people will tell you my energy is really peaceful. I'm usually peaceful or I'm playful, right? And these are because the choices that I'm making. So only you are responsible for the meaning that you are giving something, and you have the power and the capability to give it any meaning you desire. Also, you cannot control the meaning someone else puts on something. So this is a little side caveat, if you will, but this is something I coach people on a lot. For instance, this past week, one of my clients was talking to me about some struggles that they were having, and they had asked for help, and nobody was coming to help them. And so they were really hurt by this. So even if it wasn't words, they were hurt by somebody's actions, right? So a life coach might say, don't take it personal, but that's not the time and place to say that. When someone is expressing their emotions, you listen to them. At least I choose to listen to them. So when I was given an opportunity, then I could coach this person, but they were expressing hurt, that they had helped people in the past multiple times. They've, bent over backwards. They've dropped things. They put other people first. And when they needed help, no one showed up for them. Everybody made excuses. And this client was really hurt. So you have to go back to, what are you making this mean that someone didn't show up for you? What are you making it mean that you made the choice of dropping everything to help other people? And then the third caveat, the caveat that I was mentioning, is just because you operate this way doesn't mean somebody else operates the same way that you do. So it was your personal choice to drop everything to go help all these other people. So a lot of people get really stuck on this because, well, I did it for them, they should do it for me. But the reality is people don't owe you anything unless you're in a business contract and there's terms and conditions laid out and there's money being exchanged. But when it comes to like friendships, this is where boundaries come in. In this case, my client didn't have boundaries because there was benefit to my client in helping people. It was something that she enjoyed doing. And so she had an expectation that other people should help her in her time of need, that they owed her for all the past times that she has helped them. And I don't get into right or wrong here, because the thing is right or wrong, and a lot of times is how you were grown up, the perceptions that you have, the lenses that you're wearing, the interpretations that you're giving something. What I like to work on people experiencing is that emotional freedom, right? This person, regardless of the circumstance, was experiencing emotional hurt. So we have to look at the interpretations that you're giving yourself, and what you're making something mean, and what you're expecting other people to do. Because when you expect something and then you start first it starts with expectations. This is what I have found to be true. It starts off with an expectation. Your expectation isn't met. Then judgment comes in. And once judgment comes in, then there's all these hurt feelings and you start escalating in your emotional trauma. Okay. So other people are not going to operate the way that you operate. Other people aren't going to make the same decisions as you. Other people aren't going to view things the same way as you, because we are all unique and we are all different and we all have different lenses on. We all have different circumstances and struggles that we're facing. So even though we are alike in a lot of ways, everybody has their own path and they're all working through something. Now, my goal is, of course, to help the client remove that emotional aspect that they're feeling, to let go of what is hurting them emotionally so that they can see different options and different possibilities. All right, moving on. The key is what I was getting to. The key is to get to a point where you can be the observer and you can see your circumstance from a different perspective, to be able to see everything as data, which is taking away the emotional aspect of it. So, getting my client to a place where they could just see, here are the facts. I need help. I've asked these people. They're not available. What are my other options? Is there something that I could do differently with my friends? For instance, maybe the time that I needed the help wasn't working for them, and it wasn't a matter of whether or not they wanted to help me, but that I chose a bad time for them to help me. There's all sorts of things that can go into this. So here is where the meat and potatoes are, right? So words can hurt, but you don't want them to hurt. So how do you create that mindful practice of creating a different perspective and detaching from that emotional aspect of it? So I'm going to give you 5 steps, and there's a lot that you could do here. There's more steps that you can do. We can really hash this out, but I'm going to keep this really simple. Step 1, stop looking for people to agree with you and validate you. Okay, this is one of the things that I often see. You're hurt. You go to your mom, you go to your best friend, you go to your neighbor, you go to your workout buddy, whoever it may be, and you rehash the situation. You bring up those emotions again. All you're doing is validating and reinforcing your story. You're reinforcing these emotions. It is as if you're saying, I'm going to keep bringing this up because I'm hurt and people need to know about it. And you may be seeking to vent in hopes of feeling better about it. But how often do you vent and you feel better about it? Because that can be a learned behavior too. A lot of times when people are venting, it's not a one and done. It's not a dump. Thank you for listening to me. I just need to get that off of my chest. Now I feel better. I've told 10 people, 2 people have agreed with me, 5 people have given me a different perspective. Then you're getting different advice and different opinions in the middle of having a lot of emotions, whether they are up or down. And if you think about the way your brain works, fight, flight, or freeze, when you're in any of those, whatever advice you give is going to be tainted because you're in the middle of a survival mechanism in your brain, whether that's, not necessarily the danger aspect of it, but the perceived threat. You have perceived threat, you're feeling emotions that are discomforting, they're displeasurable, you don't like them. So you're in this middle of fight, flight, or freeze. Your brain is trying to protect you. So whatever advice you may be hearing, you're not in a neutral place to be able to perceive it and discern it in a way that would be beneficial to you. So my step 1 that I would tell people is to stop going to other people. This is where a lot of times we say, set with it. I did something this weekend that it created discomfort for me. I recognize the discomfort. Now, I am somebody, that doesn't like to be in discomfort. So a lot of times I will really quickly go into like a grounding exercise, meditation, go out into nature. I want to get this emotion out as quickly as possible, but I'm not skipping the process of feeling the emotion. I'm not shoving it down. I'm not ignoring it, but I'm addressing it really quickly because I don't like the way it feels. Now, other people are addressing their emotions too really quickly, but a lot of times what they're doing is they're going to somebody else to validate them or to reinforce their story. And I'm asking you to practice a pattern interrupt essentially and saying, stop it. I'm going to sit with this. I'm going to let the emotions be here. And I'm going to shift into a different perspective. So that is step 2. Like, how do you shift into a different perspective? Well, one of the tools that I learned from my mentor, Jim Fortin, so I'm giving him, props to this, is, he had asked all of us to come up with 7 different interpretations, 7 different meanings to something that's causing you, like triggering you, hurting your feelings, whatever it may be. That is a really freaking hard exercise and it's so worth it. And this is one of the reasons why I'm bringing it up to you, because it is worth it. You get to a point after 3 or 4 where you're like, oh, you really have to, at this point, get out of your own head. You've run out of your typical patterns, the typical go-to thoughts that you had. And all of a sudden, you really have to dig deep and think about something different. And that helps shift you. This is also a different way of moving your attention. See, the thing about going and venting to people is, what is your attention on? It is on the fact that you are hurt. So you're putting all of this focus, all this energy, and all this attention on, I'm hurt, I'm hurt, I'm hurt, I'm hurt. Everybody, I'm hurt. Pay attention to me, I'm hurt. Okay, so if you could choose what you want to have attention on, what would it be? Do you want to focus on the fact that you are hurt, or do you want to focus on a solution? Okay, so coming up Step 2 is coming up with different interpretations. Step 1 would be your pattern interrupt. Stop it. Stop going to other people. Stop focusing on the problem. Stop making the problem a bigger problem. Okay? Step 2 is about finding alternative interpretations. What else could this mean? You know, the reason that your life is the way it is because you keep using the same interpretations, the same stories. If you want something different in your life, you have to change your stories. So that is what step 2 is about. Step 3 is about finding gratitude for things in your circumstance. So this is one of the things that I absolutely love. This is my personal, like 100% personal viewpoints, my perspective. I tell myself all the time that I am a body, I am a temple of love. I operate from love. When I'm in my hurt, I'm not operating from love. I'm operating from judgment. I'm operating from victimhood. I'm operating from all of these things that are opposite of love. So I love to get to a place after I've gotten some different interpretations. I've let my emotions come to neutral. I've thought about it from a different perspective. Then I love to get some gratitude in there. So this is why I suggest it to other people. When I get into gratitude, it shifts me back into love. Even if I don't agree with the person, even if I don't like the circumstance, the whole point isn't about changing my circumstances because half the time the circumstances are outside of me. What this all about is the fact that I live in this body. I live with these thoughts. And it is my responsibility. Okay. And because my body is where I live and my thoughts are what I have to breathe in and out of, I'm going to take responsibility for that and I'm going to choose what is best for me. And gratitude is one of the best ways for me to shift this energy and to get back to love. Maybe you're not able to find love for another person when you're in the middle of your hurt. Everything is unique and individual, and you will all have your lessons to learn. So I'm not saying you have to do something. I'm telling you what works for me and what I tell my clients to do. So getting into gratitude, and the gratitude sometimes has to be really, really small. Last weekend, there was something that happened, and I was really upset about something. And so I had to step back, do my step 1 and 2. But when I got to step 3, my gratitude was as simple as, I am so grateful for this weather. Like I couldn't even say it about the circumstance. Like I just had to get to what can I be grateful for right now? One of the things I was saying was that, well, I'm grateful that this is a down day now and I can rest. It's okay. Like this is a benefit to me. All right. So I like to get to a place where I can find gratitude. And then as I get into that gratitude, if I get into that flow, I can start to build in some gratitude for the other person. So a situation like in my situation, I could get into, well, I can appreciate this person intentions. I can be grateful that this person is a part of my life, even if I don't agree with what this person said. I am grateful that I have the type of friendship where we can have hard conversations and when we can really show up as our true self and still work through these issues, because true friendships are going to have hard conversations and they're going to have times when you clash. But when you can work through it, that is a beautiful thing. And I can have gratitude for that. So that's where I go to. I'm just giving you some examples. You can apply this to you personally in your situation. Step 4, identifying your fears. Naming it is so powerful. I find that once I name what is the root of my fear in the situation, that alone shifts everything for me. Like I can go in the situation and be like, okay, what this person said was creating a fear of inadequacy for me, that I'm not good enough. That was a fear. That's why I'm hurt. Okay, now I know that. Is that really true? Like this is how I self coach myself. So I'm giving you examples of what you can do in your own life. And then I can ask myself, well, what do I need? Let me tell you something 99% of the time, it's you need self love. And what does self love look like to you? Is self love looking like self care for you? Is it looking like giving yourself a gift? What is your love language? Do you want quality time with yourself? Do you want a gift? Do you need to hug somebody? Like, hug it out? Like, what is your love language? And give it to yourself. Like, so identifying what your fear is, what is behind it, questioning everything, everything. So I'm putting this all, it all kind of ties in together. But, even questioning, is this true? Is going to be super helpful. How do you know it's true? I mean, when I'm coaching somebody, half the questions are, what do you want? Okay. Do you want to stay in this pain? Or do you want to feel peace? Or do you want to feel happiness? Like, what is it that you want? Okay. Like, how do you get there? What are you making this mean? What interpretations are you giving it? Is this really true? How do you know it's true? I mean, these are very common coaching questions. So you can start applying them to yourself and go into self coaching. So the whole point of step 4 is identifying your fear, asking yourself what you need, and then meeting that need. This is why there's so much inner child work. So many things we have been carrying with us into our adulthood is because of a 5-year-old perception that has gotten hurt, and we're still making our 5-year-old meaning be true in our 30 to 60-year-old body. You're not that 5-year-old child anymore, but those feelings still come up. So what do you need, and how can you give that need to yourself? So repeating this. Step 1, stop it. Just stop going to other people. Stop putting your attention there. Stop investing your energy because it's draining. All right. 2, what are you making this mean? What do you want it to mean? What are some other interpretations that you can come up with? Step 3, how can you experience gratitude in this situation? Whether it is for you, whether it is for the circumstance, whether it is for the other person. Step 4, identifying what your root fear is and what you need in this moment to feel better. Step 5, and I'm going to cut it off at step 5 because we can go into this really, really deep, but we're going to make it simple. 5, honor that the other person has a right to their own thoughts and feelings, and it has nothing to do with you. Yeah, I almost need to say that again, don't I? Here's the thing, I'm gonna do a really quick coaching on this. What people say, even if they are addressing you, even if they are making it about you, what most people say is actually their own fear. Okay, and it's projecting or showing up in some way, and they're reaching out to you and putting it on you. Okay, so what people say is most often about them, even if it is directed at you. It is their fears, worry, judgment, past experiences coming up. I'm going to give you a really quick example. My son is a transgender, and my husband has the hardest time with this because in my son's childhood, he was very happy as a female. And it wasn't until he got to a point where he felt that women are powerless and it's not safe to be a woman that he had decided to be a man. Now, this is like almost 2 years into this, and my husband is still struggling with this. And so one of the things that he was talking to me about was, you know, he's getting older and he's getting more and more into the real world, and he's going to face so many hardships, and I really just don't want him being bullied, and I don't want him suffering his whole life. And So all he's talking about is, "Hey, let's convert this conversation here 1 second." What my husband is saying is, "Hey, in my youth, I was bullied and it hurt a lot, and I don't want my kid to get hurt. And so I experienced this, therefore I'm predicting, and expecting my son to experience this too. And I fear this because it hurt me when I was young, and I don't want my kid to experience the same fears and pains and hurts. And I want to protect him. And I want to fix this problem. And I can fix this problem by having this conversation with my kid." Right? So I have to coach even my husband through some of this stuff. His intentions are 100% loving and kind, understandable. But my kid has their own life to live, and my kid is choosing this lifestyle. This is his choice. He's already facing the bullying. It's been going on for 2 years. But he's still more vibrant and alive, being who he is at his core than pretending to be something that he's not, to make me or to make his dad feel more comfortable or to make society feel more comfortable. He's actually thriving because he's being his authentic self. But my husband is only able to see his lens of fear. So when someone comes up to you, I know this is just one example, but when somebody comes up to you and they're addressing something, maybe there is some truth to that. And this is why I would tell you to question everything. And I put this as one of the last steps because like in step 1, if you go to someone right away, you're not in that neutral emotional place. Your emotions are swinging up and down and going this way and that way. But when you get to step 5, by this point, you're in a much more neutral place. And so you, not going to other people, but you can set and have discernment and go inward and check with your inner knowing and ask yourself, is any of this true? Is there something that I need to learn from what this person is saying? Like this is another way of saying, does anything stick to you? And if it sticks to you, even question that, because is that you operating out of your fears? Is this you operating out of giving your authority away? So question everything. And you know what? Maybe once you have gotten into that neutral place and you've evaluated what they said and you've looked at it objectively as data, right? This is the whole point. I want you to get to the point where you just look at it as data and not as emotional and meaning something about you. And you can look at this as data and you can say, you know what? I would like to change this. Then you're doing it from a place that honors you and not out of a place of survival or hurtship or trying to secure a relationship. You're not doing this out of being stretched by somebody and meeting somebody else's expectations. You're doing this from a place of being centered and saying, yeah, you know what? I think that's something that I can learn from, or I'm willing to consider this. And I would remind you at this stage to remember that what other people say, even if there's some truth to it, is just their opinion. There is so little micronoodle facts in life. There's so little facts. Most of everything that happens in our life is a story. It is an illusion. It is an opinion. It is not fact. And that's what I would ask you to do, because if you don't address step 4 with your fears, then sometimes things stick to you because it's a fear. It's like a fear of being not good enough. So if you don't process that before you start really digging into it and saying, is there any truth in here that I need to take away from that? It's going to stick to you because you didn't address your fear. And this is giving your power away. All right. And I am all about you living your best life and you honoring yourself and you trusting your inner knowing. This is how you get to it. If you get to it too soon and you start processing this information before you've had time to process your emotions and address your needs, then you could be altering your path when it doesn't need to be. You could be essentially, what I'm saying is you could be essentially ignoring your own inner knowing and taking somebody else's opinion as the truth. This is why step 5 is step 5 and not step 4. Okay? So, if nothing comes back to you as something that you agree with, then don't pick it up. Don't make somebody else's issue your issue because they directed it at you. Who are they? They might be somebody who you've put on a pedestal, or in the past, like if they were your parents, they were authoritative over you, but now you are most likely an adult if you're listening to this, and they no longer have authority over you. You are your own authority. All right. So if nothing sticks and you say, well, I don't agree with what this person is saying, don't pick it up. Don't waste your time and your energy. Okay. So there was something that I wanted to say here. So honoring, okay, I'm going to go back to that 5. Honoring that the other person has the right to their own opinions and their feelings, right? So that's really what I want to circle back to. What other people think is really none of your business. I know that's like we say that, and sometimes it's really hard to understand what it means, but it really has so little to do with you. And half the time, people are projecting their own experiences and their own fears on you. And so, this is why I say honor their opinion. They have the right to their opinion. You don't have to agree to it, you don't have to be in alignment with everybody. And you can still love the other person and disagree with them. This is where I think conformity gets to like, oh, we all have to think alike and we all have to be the same in order, to get along. But that's really not the case. Sometimes diversity is what makes life really interesting. And I'm not talking about the type of diversity that it's combative, but interesting, right? Oh, you think that way? I would have never thought that way. How interesting. I'm curious, why do you think this way? Well, that's an interesting perspective. I now realize I am seeing it differently. Like, that's what makes life interesting, but not when somebody's telling you who to be, how to show up. All right. So you have your 5 steps. And this relates a lot to last week's episode where I talk about the difference between attachment and commitment. So there are some steps on there that you could go into that are going to help you from last week, such as like get busy, get space from it, right? There's other things that you can do, but this is kind of like the core 5 steps I would ask you to do in order to let go and release when something hurts you. A lot of times we get attached to hanging on to the hurt. So how can you let that go? Well, I've given you 5 steps. All right, guys, you matter. Take care. I'll see you next week.